Where we are focusing right now is on helping organizations and teams recognize where they get what we call a return on commute. Great workplace culture doesn't just happen. And if you do have it, it has to be cultivated and maintained and sustained.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
My name is Vince Holt, and I'm the host of Talent Hunters. It is my pleasure to have Audrey Ruffet, CEO of Mariana Strategies, located in Washington, D.C. With over 14 years in employment law, Audrey specializes in cultural solutions in the workplace. Welcome, Audrey.
Thanks so much for having me, Vince.
I have to say, when I got introduced to this topic of culture solutions, I thought, oh my gosh, this is huge, because it is a problem today. There are cultural issues in corporate America today that most of us aren't even aware of. So the first question is, what inspired you to start Mariana Strategies?
What inspired me to start Mariana Strategies was an experience that I had as a first-year associate at a law firm in New York City. This is 20 years ago. I worked in commercial litigation, and there was a partner whom I was attached to for all sorts of projects. And while we were different in a lot of ways, we were different politically, socially, experientially, he took such pains to make sure I was the greatest professional I could possibly be. And having that experience in the workplace, I held on to that through all my different work experiences over the course of my career to say, I want everyone to experience that opportunity to feel like they're made to thrive. I held on to it. And then when the opportunity arose, knowing that we could do something to help workplaces function better when it comes to people and culture, I leapt at the opportunity. And that happened at the time of the Me Too movement. We knew that workplaces were looking to address the problems of workplace culture, where people were experiencing harassment and discrimination. And I said, this is it. This is the moment.
So since you started this 14 years ago?
8 years ago for Mariana Strategies.
8 years ago. Mm-hmm. You've been through a huge change because of COVID, which has dramatically changed the marketplace, corporate America, cultures. The Me Too in somebody's eyes now, some people's eyes now, has changed to me. And that's both on leadership of corporate America as well as the employees of corporate America. How has COVID changed your strategies?
That's such a great question. What COVID did for us and for the people, the teams that we work with, is double down. It forced us to double down on how people build relationships. Because when we're working on teams and the gears are grinding and work isn't happening, where the teams aren't connecting, or there are problems and people aren't communicating well, if you don't have relationships to rely on, then it's much harder to get to those outcomes that you're looking for. So COVID gave us the shared experience to talk about what we're experiencing outside of work. It allowed people to connect in ways that maybe they hadn't before. You kept your personal life outside of work, but now your personal life is happening in your Zoom background. It made us have more frank conversations. And those frank conversations allowed people to connect in a deeper way. And they brought that connection to the projects that they were working on, and it led to better outcomes. And it was something that we could consistently come back to and talk about with our clients.
So now that 4 years later, 5 years later, it's starting to evolve again, where that we had the trimatic of work from home, the work hybrid, the demand to come in. It's starting to lean a little closer to demand to come in, which has to upset a lot of the work in culture development that you've been working on since COVID. What are your dynamics now? Where are you focusing right now?
Where we are focusing right now is on helping organizations and teams recognize where they get what we call a return on commute. Right. So there's work that people are able to do successfully on their own in a quiet space, wherever that is, in the office, out of the office. We want that work to happen, but we really need the work that depends on collaboration with others to happen in a space that's physically together. And when teams are focused on having that, they're able to see what's most valuable, and they get that return on the time that's spent traveling to and from an office. So that's an aspect of the return to office that's been really significant. And another that we've seen happen time and again when we're working with clients is that a decision to make a change, a policy change, these things are happening all the time. But when people have insight into how a decision is made, they are more likely to collaborate in moving it forward instead of grinding against the decision. So we see when our clients, our teams are talking about we're going to return to office, and it's because of this input and that input and this rationale. And we took into consideration this and that perspective. People are far more likely to say, I just needed that insight into how the decision was made. And many more people are going to be cooperative in that process as a result. So those are the two big things that we're seeing.
Yeah. So forgive my ignorance on this, but are you approached more from the corporate leadership side of this, or is it the employees that are approaching you in regards to help?
It's the leadership that's reaching out to us. Usually it's a COO, CHRO, somebody contacting us for help on these related issues.
Oh, wonderful. So what are some of the questions, and I've read a lot about through your website and so forth about what you offer and so forth, and I'd like our audience to understand when CEO, for lack of better wording, approaches you. I need your help. I want to collaborate with my people, but I need your guidance. What kind of questions do you ask going into this relationship of the CEO before you even make the decision? Yeah, you're open to this, or this is going to be an uphill climb.
The kinds of questions that we are asking are, so who have you talked to? How do you know what's going on? What are the challenges, and who's coming to talk to you about them? Is this coming from things like skip level check-ins with folks to find out? Have you done a survey? What are your values that you feel are being compromised in this moment that's having you reach out to us? So we try to step back and let the CEO do a fair amount of talking, and we're able to see what is motivating them to reach out to us. And that it has a huge impact on the trajectory of an engagement every time.
Have you ever turned somebody down?
Yes.
Without naming names or going into specifics, what caused you to walk away from that business?
In instances where someone reaches out to us and is looking for a checkbox activity, something that for someone to come in and speak to a group rather than to hear from a group and to engage, to really listen. That has impacted our decision on whether or not to take on a client. And the other element that comes up that really has an impact on whether or not this will be a fruitful engagement is a willingness to hear difficult truths. So when leaders tell us, give it to me straight, but we're going to see a problem, fix a problem, we run to those clients. We love them. We know that they're willing to do what needs to be done in service of this greater goal, which is a workplace where people feel valued, they feel trusted to execute on their roles, and they're able to be themselves to do the job. And we love those clients.
So in other words, no hidden agendas.
No. The hidden anything, Vince, is the issue for us. We need to lay it out on the table and say, these are our expectations of you, and this is what you can expect of us, that we're going to be a partner to help you identify where there's misalignment and how that's impacting your ability to execute on the mission. So that is at the heart of everything that we're doing.
Boy, I'm going to jump all the way back to the beginning of this. And you started your career as an attorney.
Yes.
What did you practice as an attorney?
Commercial litigation in New York, in the commercial division of state Supreme Court and in the federal court.
So forgive my ignorance on attorneys, okay? But as an attorney, you practice to win. Right. Your career now is not about winning. What caused you to go through this metamorphosis?
Vince, I wish we had been there to have this conversation before I went to law school. A lot of the change came from realizing that at heart, I want collaborative solutions with people. And you're absolutely right that there is a zero-sum element to litigation. When people get to the point of lawsuits, they are already heartbroken. They've thrown good money after bad. It's difficult for everyone. But really what I found is that in working together to find solutions, people can experience great workplaces. And that's what we want to bring. So it took some time to get to this place. But in the back, one of the reasons why this was so helpful was that having practice in part, there were some cases that were employment law related cases. While the law is a trailing indicator of change in this country, we have milestone, crucial laws that support this work of having a healthy workplace. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act protects us all against harassment and discrimination at work on the basis of race, religion, color, national origin, and sex. And these are our values as Americans. And being able to use that as a baseline, as a foundation, has been helpful in the collaborative approach.
It's so refreshing to hear what you're trying to do with the transparency you're trying to bring to both parties, because in the end, it is a win if they get together. I mean, what a great ambition to develop a program that helps people come together to create a bigger sum of their corporation.
Exactly. This is the sum being bigger than the whole of its parts. Yeah.
I love that. So give us an example of, if you wouldn't mind, because I want people to understand this isn't a kumbaya. This is, sometimes we got to roll up our sleeves. Sometimes I got to be blatantly honest with you. Sometimes I got to be blatantly honest with you. And if you want this to work, we're going to talk about it. Give us an example of a challenging situation that you were able to bring to a positive conclusion and how you did it, please.
Absolutely. So one example of a challenging situation where we're able to come to a positive conclusion is working with a team that expanded significantly over a short period of time. And every time you add new people to a group, the dynamics of the group changes. And it's easy to get off course or for some people to have an outsized impact on the dynamics of the team. And when we're not focused heavily on our values in that space, who knows where we'll end up. So some of the challenges in this team were leadership that engaged in behavior that alienated team members, a lot of yelling, behavior that was belittling. And this set a bad example for mid-level managers and created the appearance that this was what was tolerated. Not only the appearance, but it was what was tolerated. The other problem, obviously, is with the leader and their direct reports. So what do you do in this situation? The first thing that we did was build rapport with the leaders and the team members, sitting down, hearing what's important to them, spending time with them, and then sharing skills building techniques that can help them communicate better, understand their own motivations, and act on them in a way that is reflects the goals of this group. So we had to have some of the what we call the come to Jesus conversations. You build that rapport, people understand we're coming in with their best intentions, and say, when you yell at people, it does not have the effect that you wish it to have. And understanding, coming in with empathy for people goes a long way, and creating the skills of, a lot of times it's emotional intelligence for someone to understand self-management, self-regulation when tempers are flaring, self-awareness, how do people respond when I walk into a room, and empathy, understanding what motivates others, seeing things from their perspective, and making this part of a regular practice. So one thing that comes up quite often is that we can't go in, drop in, have a discussion, and leave. No, it takes time. So over time, we were able to see that in this one team, there was change. People said the leader had changed their behavior for the better. There was still a way to go, but having common language, common expectations, shared values made a huge difference for that team.
Forgive my humor, but law degree, psychological approach.
I'll take it.
I see more psychology in here than I do law, which I love. You use law as a guiding light, but the psychology is to appeal to the people themselves as people.
As people. Absolutely.
Wow. Amazing. Where do you see your organization in the next 5 years?
Where I see us in the next 5 years is focusing on the holistic nature of culture in the workplace, connecting culture to your mission and looking at it with a 360-degree view. I mentioned at the beginning that I started this looking at issues of harassment prevention. And we know from the research that some of the toughest, most challenging elements of workplace culture, the things that cause the greatest pain, are lack of inclusion, bullying, abusive behavior, cutthroat behavior, unethical behavior. That's the worst of it. And we've spent a lot of time in very urgent situations putting out fires. And for us, what we'd love to see is helping organizations approach culture as something where they're able to highlight the best of what they do, how they can supercharge their teams for the outcomes that they're looking for, and always with the focus on their mission. So quite often our clients are mission-driven. organizations, whether it's in government or intergovernmental organizations or nonprofits, and helping them achieve their mission has been a wonderful experience. But for us, focusing more holistically on culture will be where we'll be in 5 years.
As you were just talking, something just slapped me in the face, and that was where a true value of what you bring would be in acquisitions. Mm-hmm. Because talk about culture change, I don't care the size of the company. It can be a company of 5 people or a company of 5,000 people. When these acquisitions happen, the acquiring company has a different culture. Nobody can argue it than the one they're acquiring. And they both think they're best at what they do. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get involved in that at this point?
Our experience with acquisitions has been limited, but it's an obvious pain point there. The 2 groups getting together and, who's going to invite whom to dance first. How you approach that is tricky, but that change management and growth mindset approach, I think would be really valuable in that space.
I think it would be too. I've been a part of an organization that was acquired a few times. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, behind the scenes, you've got everybody that's done it one way, and the fear factor creates their own problems. And then on the other side, it's okay, we want to go after this gingerly and do it right. But what's the right way? I mean, there isn't a book out there. Well, sure, there's lots of books.
Probably is.
I give you that. But there is no right or wrong way because, like you've said all through this thing, it really is about the people involved.
Where this has come up in our practice has been around transitions, like what we're seeing right now with the new administration. Yeah. We've worked with federal clients, and around the time of the end, during a lame duck administration, a lot of people wondering, how am I going to be impacted by the change when the new political appointees come in? What's going to happen? How? And then there are people who, like you were saying about how acquisitions happen. There are people who know what this process can look like, but you have to be there to support folks through it to get the job done. So that is where we've had that experience.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up. You're located in Washington, D.C. There's been a little bit of change going on in Washington, D.C. What a challenge.
It's certainly, this is where we're talking about it all the time and who's going to be impacted and how it's going to happen. And, what's coming up with these, the executive orders that were issued on day one, all of this. It's a tumultuous time.
Yes, it is. A lot of things get said just to be said, and the follow through that happens later on can be dramatically different. The value you bring is phenomenal. How can people reach you? How can our audience, we're going to touch people from this audience that can use your services. How can they get a hold of you?
Our website's the best way. MarianaStrategies.com and also LinkedIn. We spend a lot of time hanging out there too.
What's something that you would like to leave our audience with, please?
Something that I think is extremely valuable for leaders in organizations is that great workplace culture doesn't just happen. And if you do have it, it has to be cultivated and maintained and sustained. Or like the plant that you forget to water, it might not survive. So tending to culture is an everyday practice, and the way that leaders show up every day is the best way to do it.
Profound. Thank you very much, Audrey, for taking the time and the transparency to share what your organization is building, not trying to build, you're flat out doing it. And really appreciate the efforts that you're taking on that.
Well, Thanks for having me, Vince. It's been a pleasure.